Now imagine Veterans Memorial Coliseum 50 years ago, overfilled past capacity with cheering fans during March Madness between two high school teams. Yep, the team of all African American players with the Jefferson Democrats and the team of all white players on the Baker Bulldogs were facing off. Author Drew Kaza, a Sunset High School graduate, writes about this high contrast event, weaving in state and national politics of the times in his new book titled High Contrast, A Story of Basketball, Race, and Politics in Oregon in 1972. Let's play ball.
Central Oregon resident Drew Kaza's new book, High Contrast, A Story of Basketball, Race, and Politics in Oregon, 1972, recounts Oregon's high school March Madness 50 years ago. And the book goes beyond the big, ball game between two high school teams, the Jefferson Democrats and Baker Bulldogs, and dives into the political and cultural events of the time. Thank you so much for joining me, Drew.
Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
So good to see you and so excited about your new book. It's an exciting month as a new book is launched out into the world and readers are getting their hands on it. So tell us about High Contrast.
Well, I think it's good timing, first of all, Nicole, because basketball season's just started again for us here. It's also election season, and this book has a lot to do with politics in Oregon back in 1972, maybe as much as basketball. But it's just a great story that I felt for years needed to be told about this first state championship team from Jefferson, the all-black team, the Jefferson Democrats' first all-black team to win the state championship, playing against a bunch of basically farm boys from Baker City Bulldogs. And so I think people were captivated by it. It happened to be the most attended indoor sporting event in the history of the state of Oregon, up to the point that the Blazers built their new arena. So 1972 high school basketball, hard to believe, but it was bigger than the Blazers. It was bigger than the Ducks or Beavers. It was the game in town everybody wanted to see.
And it could have been Sunset. It could have been the Apollos, right? But it came down to one shot or something like at one point,
That is true. In the semifinals, Baker won it at the buzzer to eliminate Sunset. But Sunset had pulled the biggest upset of the tournament because they had beaten Benson the day before. Everybody was expecting it was going to be Jefferson and Benson again for the championship. They had played twice during the season with games that were decided by 2 points. And they were the number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in the state going to the tournament. But Sunset pulled that big upset, kind of paving the way for the high contrast of the Baker kids against the Jefferson kids.
Exactly. Is the book just for basketball lovers, or what do you hope people gain from this tremendous story?
Well, what I like to say to people is if you're not into basketball, you can skip through the basketball parts and read the part about Oregon history and race and politics. And if you're not into that stuff, but you like basketball, you can just read the basketball bits. Hopefully, obviously, I hope people will read the whole thing through because it is, I think, a story that, from front to back has a lot to teach us. If we look to history and learn to gain something from what we know. I mean, Oregon has a very, let's call it difficult history with race. And we won't get into the particulars here, but a lot of people are familiar with it from places like Southern and Eastern Oregon having chapters of the Ku Klux Klan in the 20th century. So we need to kind of confront that. I think this book is partly about that. It's understanding the challenges that these black kids faced in order to win the state championship. It wasn't just on the basketball court, they were facing a lot of animosity along the way. And for that matter, the Baker kids, as a bunch of farm boys who maybe the kids in the city kind of, turned an eye against. They overcame some things too. So I think all of that woven together with what was going on politically in the state and the nation at large. There's some fascinating little stories in the book, even about, how maybe we got to the place where cannabis is legalized today. That effort almost started 50 years ago, believe it or not. So I cover some of that history in the book. So yeah, we kind of cover a lot of things, but it is very much a snapshot of 1972 for those who were there, and maybe even those who are just very curious about what was going on for their parents or grandparents back in 1972. The book is available in bookstores throughout Oregon, from Manzanita to Baker and down in the valley, and it's available online. And so we're going to spend the next few months telling the story, and then I'll try to focus on what might come next. But yeah,
All right. Thank you so much for putting this together. And highcontrastbook.com has all the information. Pick up your copy and just much appreciated. Thanks for the time today. We really appreciate talking to you.
Thank you, Nicole. Good morning to you and all your viewers.